Kotaku's editor-in-chief has published an article about Bethesda and Ubisoft stonewalling his site over the last couple years, presumably due to the leaks they've published. There's a link to it in the description if you want to read it. Let's get my main point out of the way. If games journos held each other accountable for allowing publishers to have this control over them, publishers doing this wouldn't be an issue for the gaming public. If you as a games journalist don't let that affect you, good, but I'd say that's a bare minimum expectation. I don't think that improves any existing issues. If you say, here's what I don't do because doing this causes problems, and also say, here are the fucks who allow this to continue, and back it up, really destroy the trust people have in that writer or outlet. If you make that the standard, maybe publishers would give up on this kind of manipulation Totilo outlines in his piece. And if publishers continue forever anyway, this behavior still only matters to me when outlets cave and play ball. Yep. If you piss people off, they're not going to want to talk to you and will try to get you to change. Totilo's headline's right, being ostracized, as he said, by publishers can be a price of games journalism. But if no one's playing along, and Kotaku says they won't, then what's the problem for me? What's the problem for Kotaku readers? They can go elsewhere for the information it's harder for Kotaku to get if Kotaku can't get it due to being blacklisted. The Kotaku readers will be fine, they just won't be Kotaku readers anymore when it comes to that. This piece is really about what you can keep doing for Kotaku, not what Kotaku can keep doing for you. If other outlets are playing along and appeasing publishers, effectively taking advantage of their audience's trust, and Kotaku's truly serious about opposing this practice because of the press's marketing status quo it maintains, they need to give the outlets that are playing along a slap. Kotaku not changing for publishers isn't enough. Kotaku being unblacklisted isn't enough or even necessary. Let's say these publishers let Kotaku in on stuff again. Good for Kotaku, and maybe for the people who only read Kotaku. But Totilo's outlined what looks to me like a much larger problem, and even if he deals with its effect on Kotaku, we've still got questionable relationships between outlets and publishers festering away unchallenged. Kotaku has the platform and resources needed to leave a smoking hole where shills used to be. They need to start doing that, or all of this is bullshit. Just an entitled whine about them wanting stuff, without presenting any solution for the greater problem. Personally, I suspect they're more scared of getting kicked out of mailing lists than having publishers cut them off. Look, if you're going to publish script leaks for clicks, please have some balls. Moaning about wanting to have your cake and eat it, wanting to be some shitty kind of game development WikiLeaks and still get treated like enthusiast press by publishers is just embarrassing. Oppose that kind of arrangement or don't. Don't just bitch when your outlet isn't getting those benefits. Besides, if you're relying on being given what a company's happy to give you to any significant degree, I'd rather get it directly than have it puked back up at me by a journalist looking for ad revenue. As far as missing out on early review copies of games goes, Totilo himself noted that there is value in experiencing a game the same way normal gamers will. And anyway, the only reason that can be taken away is because early review copies are accepted by games press in general. Being able to give one outlet early copies and deny it to another is a power publishers have, but they only have it because games press has given it to them. That would actually be a good example of what I'm talking about. It's very hard to know if someone is holding back something because they're scared they might lose access to stuff, but if large sites took a stand and said, no, we don't do early copies anymore, it's a little thread for publishers to pull on, and because publishers' influence over press is such a big problem, we don't think that practice is justifiable. Outlets and writers that accept and use them are part of the problem. You might make that unacceptable and cut off one of publishers' fingers grabbing onto press. Just one hypothetical tactic to give you an idea what I'm talking about. I do have some better ones, but that's another video. Let's get back on track. If this so-called blacklisting stings, my first concern is actually what level of dependence Kotaku had on industry cooperation, regardless of his attempt to say that it doesn't really matter to them. There's a clear sense of the idea that Kotaku should have access, or Kotaku should be given stuff. But besides their size, why is this expected? And what are they going to do for us with what they're given? Let's see, what have I seen them do in the past with something they've gotten special early access to? What was their incredible journalistic approach to it? How did they break the status quo?
Microsoft sent us stuff early. We have the $400, I guess $399.99 or whatever, special edition of Halo 4.
It looks a lot nicer than it does in the box, actually. I like it when it's out.
Halo 4, the $400, 360, which by the way will come with the game. Microsoft PR people want me to emphasize that. Don't worry, there will be a game in there with this when you get it.
Have you ever seen that shopping channel called QVC? I just remembered something else. Maybe these publishers are doing Steven a favor by not giving him access to developers, protecting him from himself. Here's what happened back in 2013 when he got information from an indie dev and used it for an article. Grand Theft Auto taught me to drive. Update. Hoax. This story appears to have been based on a hoax that was intended to trick us into publishing a false article. An indie developer said as much online last night and in a subsequent email to me, saying that he and a friend decided to play a harmless prank to see which of the emails they sent to Kotaku in the spring of 2013 would result in a story. Okay, so he didn't know it was an indie dev at the time, but my point is this a man you'd trust to filter information for you? I think it's fair to dip back this far because Totilo used a 2012 article as an example of why Kotaku's reporting is so valuable to their readers. Speaking of which, remember this other article from 2012? PC Gaming Studio said she ruined their game, but only after she sued the boss for sexual harassment. A sensationalized piece of bait so shitty that it still haunts Brad Wardell, the boss in question, and one of the outlets that echoed it, Game Politics, later apologized for their reporting. I'll put a link in the description box to a decent summary for anyone who's interested in knowing more. I wonder why Steven didn't use this as an example of something Kotaku exposed. It certainly made someone in the industry very upset, and that's what he was bragging about not caring about, right? Kotaku does not deserve the respect that seems to be expected. Steven Totilo, the current editor-in-chief of the site, does not deserve the respect he seems to expect.
Hey everybody, Steven Totilo, deputy editor of Kotaku.com. But unfortunately, I realized that one of the 5 senses is taste, and I gotta tell you, there's no way that I'm about to taste the PS3. So if you want to do any sort of taste test yourself, you're gonna have to wait until September when the system launches.
And as far as I can tell, they never have deserved it. But, as usual, that's just another one of my harmful opinions.